Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Trek Before. This time, move along home. Yeah, I'm not going to tip my hand on this, but speaking of moving along home, it's May 4th. So what better day to join us on Facebook? Follow us. It's All Been Trek Before on Facebook. Stick it right in their mugs. Jimmy-Jerome will love you for it more than he probably already does. Come on, join us there. While you're at it, join us at patreon.com/IABD. Again, stick it to those Star Wars people. I play both sides, kind of like these Jags and move along home on It's All Been Trek Before.
Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Trek Before. Your regular hosts are here.
This is Steven.
That's Keith. I'm Jimmy-Jerome. We're here to talk about the Deep Space Nine episode, Move Along Home, which is what we're about to tell Keith. No, I'm kidding. First impression.
I tend to like the game episodes anyway, so I was already intrigued. This whether or not that's well-founded or not, it remains to be seen, I suppose, but I usually enjoyed game episodes.
It felt like a holodeck episode. So you know how I feel about those, generally speaking. But that said, I know Jimmy had mentioned this, and in my reading saw the same thing, that how reviled this episode is. It's one of the worst, not only in DS9, but one of the worst in Trek history.
Wow.
Along those lines, I did not feel that hate. I did not hate it that much. It just felt like at some point it's like, okay, this is a holodeck episode, and there's still a couple other things going on. So I certainly did not love it by any means, or even like it, but I didn't hate it. I do not have intense hatred for it.
I remember intensely hating it. Maybe because my expectations were so low, I didn't hate it this time. I agree with you. I didn't think it was all that great, but it wasn't as terrible as I thought it was going to be.
I had absolutely no preconceived notions about it, and I don't remember ever watching it, strangely enough. Yeah. I don't know, maybe if one of those episodes that sort of fell through the cracks during airing. It's like, it was bad enough they didn't replay it enough or something.
One of the reviewer websites said that this is one to skip over.
I mean, if it's your first watch, you shouldn't be skipping anything. I find that whole concept alien.
It was Wired Magazine, their 2015 binge watching guide for Star Trek Deep Space Nine recommended skipping this episode.
So that's one of my pet peeves, actually, if you want to stop there for a moment. Just
sure.
The idea of people who go out and watch these things and develop these this is such the worst thing I've ever seen. No, this is awful. You shouldn't watch it. I'm doing you a favor by going out and watching before you and saying don't watch this. I'm just like,
if you say that to me, I have to watch it.
Why salt the earth? I mean, okay, you didn't like the episode, fine, move on. You don't,
I would prefer this is the worst thing ever produced kind of review to a it's okay review. I'd rather have a this is awful. Do not go near. It's toxic. Generally speaking, because then but I just know I'm going to respond like, well, now I got to see it. But along those lines, Sci-Fi SYFY called this the silliest episode of the series, but actually encouraged watching and commenting, this thing is so weird it can't not be celebrated.
If this is DS9's lowest point, and I seem to remember it is or close to it, I feel pretty good about this. What's ahead?
That was my other thought was, well, if this is the worst, then okay, DS9 is really going to be great. So.
Yeah, it is. It really is. This season is definitely the worst season, for sure. And I'm enjoying it. So
this episode obliterated Shades of Grey as far as terrible episodes.
Oh, absolutely. Shades of Grey is way worse than this.
Yeah. Do not watch Shades of Grey.
That one, I'm almost tempted to say you're right on that one. Exception that proves the rule.
Because you already saw most of it.
Yeah. So we start out with a scene between Ben Sisko and Jake Sisko, which we sorely missed the last few episodes. It's nice to see the father-son dynamic. Might be the best scene of the episode there. That whole discussion.
Jake Sisko is a player.
Jake's like, well, I like girls. I'm 14. He's like, well, Ben's like, I'll talk to you about it. Well, Nog already talked to me. So, which continues this running theme of how much Ben Sisko is going to hate Nog because, don't fill my head. But it is interesting that Jake's looking at all the Bajoran girls, which I guess makes sense because they're near Bajor, so there'll be a lot of Bajoran girls. And if Major Kira and Ro Lauren are any indication, I would look at Bajoran girls too.
Exactly. Why not?
Absolutely. But they talked about how Ben said he hadn't worn his dress uniform in 3 years. It hangs a little loose around him. You don't just replicate a new one every time you need one. You keep the same one.
I also like that baggy is still a term that's in use.
I think my problem with Bajoran girls would be, they take off their glasses and I would be like, "What? You have ridges on your nose? That's an obscenity." And it just
they've got ridges. They're loaded with flavor.
I wish they all could be Bajoran girl. So Cisco then talks about he's going to a first contact situation, and Cisco is the guy who gets obsessed with the topic and can't drop it, or only talks about work because he's like, first contact's a lot like a first date. So. But it was also that kind of groany dad humor that I'm like, oh, I love it. It feels so nice. And so I don't know, just if we only watched that scene, I think this episode would rank very high, in my opinion.
Yeah, it does start out fun. I enjoyed it.
So they all greet each other, and they're giving Bashir crap because he doesn't have his dress uniform. And he's like, like, just replicate a new one. Again, replicators. But nobody gives Kira crap that she's still wearing her regular uniform. Is it because of the occupation Bajorans don't have dress uniforms? They're just coming out of this awful time?
Yeah,
it's Starfleet. She's not Starfleet, so.
Oh, that's true.
She's not Starfleet, but she's wearing a Bajoran uniform. Shouldn't they also have a dress uniform version?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, who's going to scold her one way or the other is the thing, I guess.
Whoever's scolding Bashir, right? equal opportunity scolder. Well, doesn't matter. So the aliens come on, the Wadi, what are they called? The Wadi? Wadi. And they don't want to do first contact Starfleet stuff. They just want to play games. Which, that's cool. Come over to my house. I'll play games with you. But Quark is suddenly thrust into the role of ambassador, which is fun and awkward. I do want to mention, and this is just, I don't usually skip the theme songs, but I was kind of in a hurry yesterday, and I hit skip track. DS9, you cannot hit skip track to skip the theme songs on the DVDs. And actually, there's a scene after included. And I noticed this when I accidentally hit skip track on an earlier episode. Next gen, you want to skip the theme song, just hit skip track. DS9, that doesn't work, you're going to miss part of the episode. That's bad DVD design.
Yeah, I don't like that.
I wonder if the next gen DVDs were like that too, but now I've got nice Blu-rays and they're fixed.
Anyway. Just to allude to what I was talking about in the green room, this week's episode of Lower Decks will echo what you just said.
No, Paramount doesn't even have like the skip intro button, unfortunately. No.
Well, Lower Decks you do, because I did it on accident yesterday, and I rewound because I don't like to skip over that. I enjoy it so much every week.
Right. Well, for TNG and DS9 so far, they do not.
Gotcha.
So the Wadi want to gamble with sticks because they're very valuable to them, and the sticks have many uses. And just the way they say it, like they use them sexually, right? They definitely use them sexually.
Yeah, there's something. Yeah.
I mean, they also use them to do offbeat music or rhythms, clearly.
I got to tell you guys, when they first show up, lame forehead tattoos fashion. But when they're like, hey, we want to go to the casino, essentially, I'm like, I like these guys. Let's party.
Yeah.
Quark is defying Cisco, but the whole thing about, well, we don't have anything other to bet than these valuable gemstones that you can buy a bag. I love that trope.
Yeah.
But so Cisco lets himself get hammered because I guess he doesn't care about being on duty anymore, right? I think later season Cisco would never be that derelict of duty, but this is still the Cisco that hates his job and dead end. But he just like, okay, Quark, you take care of them. I'm drunk. I'm tired. I'm going to bed. Even before they catch Quark cheating, though, it's pretty obvious the Wadi know that he's cheating, right? Like from the first time.
Really?
He brings in the ringer. Yeah.
Well, I guess I wasn't paying close enough attention because, I mean, it seemed like they were just winning constantly, so...
Well, they were with the Dabo girl, and then he swapped in the Dabo Ferengi, and they started losing immediately.
Well, yes, they knew he was
cheating with that big button under the table, super obviously.
Yes, okay, I thought you meant something else before that.
Yeah. For being a con man and a crook, Quark is a really terrible liar when they catch him. And it's also not very Ferengi to value his own personal safety over money, I don't think, but... I did appreciate he confirmed the holosuites are used for sex. like something we've always suspected the holodeck on a starship, but his holosuites are explicitly for adult purposes.
Yeah,
he implied it.
Do you have sex
He didn't
in your
imply
world?
it. He said use the holosuites. Don't you have sex in your world?
Yeah.
There's a little bit more of a gap between it. Just like, hey, do you people have sex in your world? Yeah. So.
Yeah, no, it felt pretty obvious.
Anyway,
the game in a box was a cool thing. If I don't know how it worked, but that whole game was in that little box.
Maybe it's like transporter technology or something, or
it's a pocket dimension, and it just pops out into the. Quark is intrigued by the game. Of course he is. Frangies like games.
You made me start thinking about it too much now. Like the coordinates of how do you make it go to the right place? Like set up on a table, or not peer over something where it's gonna fall over, or is it just
got to be some kind of holodeck technology kind of variation?
It's the smart thing. Apparently, I don't know why, but when they wake up in the game, they're all in their uniforms, and they all have tricorders. Like, I know they're not sleeping with their tricorders, so why do they get tricorders? I don't understand exactly.
I hadn't thought of that either. They never make it clear how all right. So when Odo was investigating with the other security guy from Starfleet, I think the answer that they hinted at was that they were sort of like between transporter signals or something. Like they were just like not anywhere.
Yeah.
Or in some sort of transporter void.
Something like that. It was weird.
So I'm not sure what pattern they would use for something like that.
And their communicators worked, but only locally among the four of them, even though then they just yelled at each other anyway. So it didn't make a lot of sense, the setup. I mean, nothing about this game really made sense, so here's where the episode falls apart. But yeah,
I would say that was the biggest hole that I hadn't really considered right there. I start thinking towards an explanation sort of like something like they gave in The Matrix, to the extent of some sort of persistent self-image. You're pulled into this thing. This is how you would see yourself with these objects, if you were like in a dream of some sort.
But they were functional and worked.
Yeah. Which, they would in that sense of the sort of like a going like quantum physics type thing, just like the thing that people would agree means something in the sense of, but I don't know. That's a pretty big hole though.
The game runner, I'm going to call him the DM, the game master, GM, DM, Dungeon Master, Game Master, whatever. Follow, played by Joel Brooks, who's best known for Stir Crazy and Decent Proposal, and this role. He has 133 credits. He was recently an episode of Bob Hart's Abishola and a couple episodes of Fuller House. This is his only Trek credit, yes.
I recognized him right away. Like, I've seen this guy in a lot.
He wasn't in Seinfeld, though, so I don't know how you know him.
Nope.
He was fun, but I don't know why he was in the game, and then he appears to them and says the name of the episode, which I'm sure Keith enjoyed, and then laughed.
I enjoyed it.
Bashir tried to wake himself up. What the heck was he doing? First of all, he wasn't committing to it. He was only doing half-heartedly. And why is his arms up? Like
that looks like commitment to me. Like he's like,
he was He wasn't doing a real scream. He was doing the fake And why is he doing the arms up like this against the wall? Like, if he's trying to wake himself up, should he be pinching or slapping? I don't know. It just didn't feel. Keiko is still on Earth in this episode for who knows why. I mean, the balls of Cole Meany. He's been upgraded to series lead after all these days of just barely appearing in Next Gen. He's like, fine, but after 4 episodes, I'm going to take 6 off. That's cool, right? Peace.
6?
I don't know. It's been several. This is the 3rd one, I think.
Wow. That's still a lot.
It might not be 6, but this is a brand new show, and he's missing for multiple episodes in a row. It feels real weird. And Primin, who I kind of enjoyed last time, definitely feels like he's just reading O'Brien's lines this time.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Other than like 2 lines that they made about security, it feels like this is just O'Brien's part.
Funny. Maybe that's what happened.
I think
Keiko is. He was brought in to replace O'Brien.
Keiko's on Earth goes back to something I said a couple weeks ago, which I think Keiko on Earth is visiting Earth is code for we're spending some time apart. There's trouble in the marriage. That's what I think.
That you think they're at marriage counseling?
Yes, or they're both doing walkabouts.
Jake and Odo's little conversation is kind of fun, except like Odo's being very cagey and not admitting his mistakes, and then Odo goes and blames Primin for his own mistake. Like, yes, I know Primin's the Starfleet security guy, but Odo's really inept in this episode as a security chief.
Yeah. Yeah.
Learn as you play. That's sure convenient that they don't have to come out with the rules.
It's like Gamesters of Triskelion or any D&D game.
I keep thinking of Gamesters, or I kept thinking of that, or at least the title.
I feel like you have an understanding of the D&D games before you begin the D&D games.
True.
Like, maybe not all of the rules. So the first thing they do is they have the first challenge, the second strat or whatever it is. They have to hop and sing at the same time. And once Dax figures that out, because she's the only one really taking it seriously at that point, they all do it like in round. Did you notice? Like, why do it in a round? You'd think you'd mess each other up at that point. I don't know.
Speaking of silly, that part I enjoyed. I did enjoy that as well. This is the second week we've had a bunch of singing on the episode we watched. Last week we had the Klingon songs. This week, I don't know if this is it seems like it's a Wadi song, but because
it seems like just your average childhood chant.
Yeah.
Odo and Quark sure figure out quick where the officers have gone. I don't know. I think it would take me a little bit more of a leap. I think it would take a little more information to make that leap.
I think you're right, but at the same time, I kind of liked that. I thought
just get past it and move on.
Yeah. For the sake of expediency, yes. And also, it seemed it kind of spoke well to their characters of being clever enough to figure that out, to put it together. Just even to look between them at that point is like, wait, four, yeah.
I guess Bashir guesses that they have to drink because they're all being poisoned. I like to think Bashir really didn't guess that. He was just like, well, screw it, I'm going to die anyway. I want to drink. Odo gets very frustrated with Starfleet policy. Not the first time, won't be the last. I guess that's just an Odo thing.
I think I'm backing up. I'm not sure. Kira decides she's had enough. And to her, having gone, she says, this has gone far enough. She grabs a tray of food and slams it to the floor. Is that necessary? Is that when you know you're at your breaking point, is you grab a tray of food that wasn't in your hands already and say, hey. And then she says, what is wrong with you people? Again, racism rears its ugly head.
That's just classic Kira. That's just Kira being Kira.
But it did make me laugh, just for being like, I'm going to throw down this plate of food. It wasn't even her plate of food. It wasn't even her tray of food. So clearly she was fed up, but I enjoyed that.
But that's just Kira being Kira. I didn't take any offense at that.
No, it just made. And then after that, I just decided, or sometime after that, it might have been. It was probably when they did the drinking you were talking about. I just wrote down, this is DS9, the escape room, because they're just trying to solve each of the puzzles.
Quark does the shortcut, and that's when he tells Odo, like, hey, I know games, you don't know games, trust me. And I do think Quark was trying to act the right in that matter, but it does kind of lessen the seriousness when then he makes Odo blow on the dice, doesn't it?
I loved that part, actually.
Yeah.
Well, Quark and Odo's relationship is fun, even if it doesn't, but that part probably didn't need the levity of that, even though I liked it on its own.
Similar to last week, Keith, you can probably correct me, but I didn't feel like there were stakes. As soon as I decided it was a holodeck episode, maybe Kira, maybe there was a stake on that plate she threw down, but I was like, oh, it's an escape room. It's a Wadi holodeck. I'm not worried about, it doesn't necessarily make it uninteresting. There's just no stakes.
Well, the stakes were at the beginning. I mean, the Wadi guy tried to offer it to him, and he was like, what am I going to do with sticks? I've got plenty of sticks already, so...
I think once Bashir disappears, we realize there's no stakes. Until Bashir disappears, you don't know necessarily there's no stakes.
We're still in first contact, and what's the deal with these people? What is with you people? What is wrong with you people? To quote Kira. What is the deal? I wish she'd done that.
Now then, Quark has to sacrifice so that one may live, or so that the others may live. If Bashir had not been taken out of the game, that's an easy decision, right? You just sacrifice Bashir. Right?
If he knew.
At this point of the series, given those four characters, they're like, you have to choose carefully. Bashir, no, between the four, Bashir, the one you choose is good. Bashir, yes, I know they're going to die. It's fine.
So, is this supposed to kind of show that Quark has feelings for these?
I think so.
I do too.
For what trouble he may get into.
Yeah, but I did appreciate that.
He genuinely seemed upset about the idea of having to choose to kill someone.
Yeah, he did. He's not a killer. He's He's a trickster and a criminal, but he's not a murderer. I agree with that. Quark begging to save them. That was good. But as Quark's begging, Odo and the Game Master follow, both give him the same look of, man, you're pathetic. But it does work. And somehow the game just allows you to program the random sacrifice in, so it must come up a lot. Like, they must have plenty of people that beg like Quark. They're just like, either that or they did say the first shaft was for kids, so maybe in a kids game they don't make them choose. But if you know there's no stakes, why are you sad about choosing? Like, you'd want to be strategic and make the choice. I don't know why you even need that random option.
Do we think that the Wadi think that Quark and those guys know that it's a game? Or not the people in it, but the Quark knows it's...
No, that's a very good question.
Because they're so cavalier.
Right.
I don't think they know that Quark doesn't realize.
Okay.
It'd be nice of them to correct him and let him know at least that much.
It would be.
But I think part of this is revenge on him for what he did, so they're not going to.
Right.
I was going to bring that up. Do you think that that's the way that the game always goes? That there has to be some live people that are brought in as the player pieces? And
apparently, but you'd think there'd be some discussion of who to use for that and all. I don't know. The whole thing was thin.
Yeah, so I guess what I would... Well, here's an alternate episode, I suppose. It's just the idea of seeing the way that the Wadi play the game typically. Like, go to one of their actual casinos or whatever and just see how the selection process happens. Do they know who the pieces represent? Do they know their abilities? Made me think of this earlier, the whole D&D comparison. No, you have these 4 people in this party, and maybe they know that these are, this is my rogue and this is the paladin or whatever, and they're just kind of, this is what I have to sacrifice in this situation. I'm going to send them in here.
I think the Wadi used to punish cheaters like Robert De Niro punishes cheaters in the casino by just taking a hammer to their knuckles. But then they evolved, and so this is what they do now. They put them through a torturous game of where they think the people they know are friends may be dying. I don't know if it's actually evolution or not, but I feel like it is. Nobody's knuckles are getting mashed.
I mean, the way they talk about how you just have to learn as you play, I'm sure there's plenty of people that play that don't know.
It seems like Quark wouldn't have known unless Odo did the research and came in and started asking questions like that.
Yeah.
Before he even have the opportunity. He could have gotten all the way through the game and not known.
Yeah. So Bashir yelling Dax falling for it. That I feel like Dax wouldn't have fallen for it. Dax says goodbye to Sisko. Man, she can really be cold. That whole I'd leave you. I don't. We were blah blah blah. Jeez. But I did appreciate the exchange of. I did appreciate the exchange of Kira being like, "Well, you can't court-martial me," and Dax is like, "I court-martial you both."
There was a weird upshot when they're trying to save Dax in the cavern. This is part fashion. It felt like the whole idea of the shot, and because they did it going in and going out, seemed to be like, "Hey, Terry Farrell has a nice bosom." It just seemed like whatever the clothing she was wearing, it was like, we're holding her a certain way. It was just such a weird shot. Like it made sense when Kira was about to fall, but it didn't make sense for that part. It was just weird. And I guess that points to the silliness of the episode, which I think for me makes me not hate it as much because it's so silly. I kind of like Cat's Paw, although Cat's Paw is a different thing altogether.
Maybe that was the hint they were going for in a way. If they were even trying to think through it.
Yeah.
And then the whole the cavalier attitudes of the Wadi, and just like this is a game, and then this is it's only something that makes more sense in retrospect, I guess, the tone. But
I mean, I guess we're supposed to believe that Sisko and Kira did the wrong thing by not abandoning Dax, because if this had been real life, they could have survived. Instead, they all died. They all fell down the ground.
Oh, that's true.
And then, of course, they're zapped out, and there was no real danger because, as Fallow says, it was only a game.
Right.
Let's all laugh.
Odo blames Quark for groveling. So was this Quark versus the game, or was it Quark versus Fallow? Or is Fallow just like the Dungeon Master, and it is just Quark versus the game, like a one-player D&D with your Dungeon Master?
Oh.
Because it seemed like Fallow was not really actually being a real game master. It was all luck and dice rolls and stuff, and he was just there.
Oh, that's true.
So I don't know.
I was getting... I guess I had the impression he was the Dungeon Master in that situation.
I did too,
that's why
dice roll determined what happened.
Right. That's how he appeared inside the game to run along home. Ha, ha, ha.
Yeah.
And the scene with the poison and so forth. My impressions of the dice rolls, again, if you want to go with like the D&D interpretation, maybe it determined their chances of doing something or succeeding when they were doing something, or the room that they end up moving to.
Yeah, that's just not how they portrayed it. And I think that's what threw me. Although my alternate episode on this is just like the Deep Space Nine crew sits down and plays D&D, which I think would be fun.
But no, that's a good point, though. I think that's one of the things that would have improved the episode or the game itself. Or rather, if they had been a little firmer, first of all, making more difficult puzzles for the audience's benefit. Of like, you're watching this, you're going, okay, this is what they should be doing. Do that. From our perspective, it looks easy. Or it looks obvious. They should just try to drink the drink. But my point is either harder puzzles and a clearer connection between what is happening on the board and what is happening into the transporter space or wherever.
Yeah, I guess if Follow shows up more often in the game, then he becomes Q. Which, I mean, there are many distinctions, but is there much difference if he shows up more in the game between that and like the Robin Hood episode? That's all jive too. That's all just Q being like, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. It's like he's the dungeon master. Q's just always the dungeon master.
Well, it depends on the costume changes.
Drawing arbitrary lines, but yeah, he's funnier than these others. Although Joel Brooks has been funny in things, so I wish so they could have made him funnier and not given him those stupid. I call them tattoos, but whatever was on their forehead.
They're dream catchers, like the one that the Bashir is on there. Mm-hmm. If you see him like trying to wake up, the
only other note I had, this was pretty random. I appreciated Dax's hair clip, which I think she keeps through like most of the series, but I like the hair clip.
Mine is, I think you touched on this earlier, Jimmy, about Odo and Primon's conversation. I like Odo's non-Starfleet loophole where he's like, Primon's like, it's against Starfleet policy or whatever, and he's like, Odo's like, well, I'm not Starfleet, so do it. It's against the rules to press a few buttons. And Primon's like, no, all right, you got me. So he found a loophole.
Loopholes.
I have two alternate episodes, but they're pretty much the same. Waddy shoots and ladders. I'd love to see what that is. And similarly, Space Jumanji is what it made me think of eventually when they were in the cliffs and the cavern and all that stuff. So,
okay.
Jumanji.
This episode was directed by David Carson, one of the regulars. It's story by Michael Piller, the showrunner, but the teleplay is by three different people, which might be part of why it's such a mess.
Trouble.
Frederick Rappaport, Lisa Rich, and Jean Kerrigan Fauci. So Lisa and Jean, I don't know. They both have 3 Star Trek writing credits. They were in an episode Next Gen that we haven't seen yet called Liaisons. They wrote this, and then they also wrote story by Duet, which is a Deep Space Nine episode at the end of season 1 that's probably the best episode of season 1 and still like one of the best episodes of DS9. It's really good. So they went from this to like a really good episode, although that story by versus teleplay by, maybe they came up with the idea for Duet and then they're like, after Move Along Home, somebody else is writing this. I don't know. The third guy, Frederick, he's best known as a producer for the Twilight Zone 2002-2003 series, the 4400, The Outsiders, Baywatch, Melrose Place, and he's a writer for basically all of those as well. He has one other Star Trek credit, and it's a different Deep Space Nine episode that we haven't seen yet, so we'll see if that one's any better. It's called Sanctuary. But yeah, it may have been a case of too many people trying to write, and they're all like, we're new to this job, let's keep each other happy, so let's not push on these things that don't make sense. I don't know.
That actually makes a lot of sense.
It does make sense.
I still think it's the invisible hand of the hero that Star Trek needs. Of course, I'm talking about DC Fontana. It was popping in my head just then. It all makes sense now that the initials are DC, just exactly like Batman. It was all right there.
I got nothing to that. You know my opinions on DC Fontana. They're well documented.
I exist in the shadows.
Well, if you guys don't have anything, I had so many more notes than the last time, but I feel like I just kind of blew through them. We didn't talk as much about this. It was more just...
There were a lot of deep, meaty topics here.
So this is a very thin episode.
Yeah.
So let's get to the rankings. Who was your shady character this week?
I collectively named the Wadi as my shady character.
I mean, I'm going to call out Fallow specifically because he was given so many chances to actually explain something. And he's
nope. Yeah.
Just like Q does.
Keith, shady.
Q
wasn't in this.
Yeah.
Or was he?
The whole thing was. We're going to find out in a couple episodes.
They're the
from
same
now
person, man. This is my new theory.
Q does not ever appear in DS9 again.
Sorry,
we saw his one and only DS9 pop in
that we know of.
This person, they're the same omnipotent being. They're not. Yeah. He's not a person.
Now, once Cisco punches him in the face, he's not coming back because Picard would never hit him. Keith, shady.
Fallow.
Q, did you find annoying?
I'm also going to say collectively the Wadi. As much as I liked him at first, they soon wore on me for the same reasons you guys didn't like Fallow.
I want to say whoever named this episode, because this really bothers me. It's Move Along Home, but the A in along is lowercase, and I don't know why. It looks bad. I feel like it should be capitalized.
Some people will go with I think the theory that all prepositions.
There are certain types of words, but a word that long and in the middle like that, it just feels wrong to me.
Right.
So I'm going with whoever. I was going to go with the kid that did the hopscotch, but I'm going with whoever made along lowercase.
Along is a preposition, Keith. You're correct.
Doesn't matter. It should be capitalized in this case.
It can also be used as an adverb. But
I've just as often seen the rule where it's like words under a certain number of letters, like the 3 letters or something like that, maybe. But
yeah, but this is 5 letters.
Right. No, I'm agreeing with you. That seems wrong.
Okay. Who's your annoyance?
That little kid was a good choice. I hadn't even thought of that. I guess I'll go with Bashir, since I usually probably wouldn't, but that thing at the.
He usually wouldn't, except you've gone with him 4 times in 9 episodes.
Really?
Yes, including last week and the first 2 episodes of the season.
So it seems so unfair.
I've gone with him 3 times. Todd, the same ones you did, except this one. Steven only chose him in the pilot.
FYI, the internet agrees with you guys that longer propositions above, below, beyond, between, among, along, beneath, under should be capitalized. In the title, they should be capitalized.
Thank you. Yeah, Memory Alpha capitalizes it, and so does Wikipedia. IMDb does not. I think for my own sanity, when this episode goes live, I'm going to capitalize it. And screw whoever did not, because it will really bother me if I don't capitalize it.
Maybe it's like one Borg, maybe it's one of those things, where there's not a comma in the title. So they got added later.
I think we finally touched on the real reason why the Vulcans and the Romulans split. Probably over
that. I can never not say anything more clever than that, Keith. Who are you having a drink with and Move Along Home?
It's an obscenity. It's an obscenity to not capitalize along.
Wow.
Just like the Romulans. I'm going to have a drink with Jake, the player.
He's 14.
Yeah.
So I assume it's not alcoholic drink.
You're right. He has to drink a Coca-Cola. Right. Space Coca-Cola. And I will give him the talk that Cisco isn't able to give him.
Or the necklace.
Oh.
Woo! Good callback.
Sorry.
I'm going to go with Quark because I feel like he needs a drink after what he just went through.
That's fair.
Even though he deserved it a little bit, he still needs a drink.
I'd probably choose the Wati at the party inside the game because of it.
You want to attend the party?
Yeah, that drink seems like it must be pretty helpful for a lot of things. So maybe it'll just fix all kinds of things.
Okay.
The antidote.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Let's rank the episode. I'm going to start at the bottom. Better, worse than Q-less.
Very similar episodes because they both have Q in them.
Yeah, that wasn't a good episode, but at least it had a mystery that had some meat to it. And Cisco punched Q in the face. And it had Bash, and I like Bash. So for all those reasons, I'm going to say below.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
It made me laugh more too. So
yeah.
So I guess the internet's right. This is the worst episode of the series.
So far of the 9 episodes of the series we've watched.
Yeah. How did they know?
Next week, we stay on DS9 for the Nagus. The Ferengi leader, Grand Nagus Zek, comes to the station. He seems very interested in Quark's bar. You said, "Oh wow, Keith, you remember Zek?"
Kind of. I mean, I I remember it being something interesting for the culture and so on. And it's just something momentous in that sense.
This will be, I think, the first real Ferengi episode and the first appearance of Zek, who we'll talk about this more next week, but he's in 7 episodes played by the great Wallace Shawn.
Oh, right.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, now I'm excited.
We'll get to know Zek as a character quite a bit. I'm excited for his introduction. Until then, live long.
And just kidding.
It's just a game.
And prosper.
I should have said that after you said and prosper. No.
Should have. Well.
It's All Been Done presents.
Who's got the time?